Let's continue with our lesson 3.1. Now, we are going to talk about the concepts of domain and range. And the question is, what is the domain of a function? What is the range of a function? So, we first need to understand what domain and range are. But I guess the best way to understand this is by analyzing a couple of graphs right away. I want you to take a look at the first graph we have here. It's a discrete function. Now we are assuming both of them are functions. This first function is discrete because, as you can see, it's just dots scattered all over. Whereas number two is a continuous function because, as you can see, we know it because of the straight lines that go from one point to the other. If we go back to number one, the first thing we need to do is figure out what the coordinates of those points are. And let's begin from left to right, starting from the first one whose coordinates are -2, 1. Then this point which has coordinates 0, 3. This one has coordinates 2, 2. And the last one has coordinates 3, 4. Let's make the list of all the x coordinates here, the x values. The x values are, starting from left to right, -2. This -2 comes from here, right? Let's continue. What is the next x value? It's 0. Where did I get it from? I got it from here, as you can see. The next x value from this list of 4 different points is going to be 2, and the last one is going to be 3. And that's it. We have 4 different points, which means we have 4 different x coordinates. That, my friends, is the list of all the x values contained in this function. So, in this case, the set I just described is this, the set of all x values of the function. I just described what the domain is. Okay, so the domain again is the set of all x values of the function. When you have those x values entered in the function, let me get back to our machine. Remember this? So for that function, we have those 4 values that are going to enter here. They are going to be transformed, cooked, whatever, to bring me a certain number of outputs. We have 4 inputs and 4 corresponding outputs. So now we are going to make a list of all the y values resulting from those inputs. So what is the output for -2? It's 1. What is the output for 0? It is 3. The output of 2 is 2, and the output of 3 is 4. Where did I get those numbers from? Remember, I got those numbers from the coordinates, the coordinate pairs. Can you see that this first number right here, look, -2, 1. So -2 and its corresponding output, it's 1. Okay? So if now I made the list of all the possible outputs, right? These are the outputs. So it's a set. It means a list. And they are put inside something, yeah? So these numbers 1, 3, 2, and 4 is what we call the set of all y values of the function. So the set of all the values of a function is what we know as the range. As you can see, I can make a list. It's possible to make a list of both the values of the domain and the values of the range because it's a discrete function. But now I want you to take a look at the second function here. Okay, let's focus on this function now. It's a little bit different because I want you I dare you to make a list of all the possible values contained in the domain for this function. You know where it begins and you know where it ends. Where does it begin? The lowest possible value is -1. Can you see that is the one furthest to the left? And this function goes all the way to 5. That is the number farthest to the right. So it seems as though this function, specifically the set of x values, goes from this point to this point, from -1 to 5. But guys, remember that there will always be more numbers in between. If you go from -1 to 0, there will always be numbers in between, -0.5, -0.3, and so on. And there will always be more numbers and more numbers, an infinite, an infinite amount of numbers. So what can I do here? Well, I will just say that the domain for this function number 2, let me just write the domain, goes from the lowest possible value, -1, as you can see, because it's right here, to the farthest to the right, which in this case it's 5, as you can see. Okay, I want you to focus on those 2 points, the end points. So if you take a look at the coordinates of the number on the, sorry, of the point on the left, the coordinates are -1, 3, and the coordinates of this point are 5, 0. Now, let's talk about the range. What is the lowest possible value and what is the highest possible value? And let me zoom this in. Guys, look, this is the lowest possible point. Can you see that there is nothing below it? And this point, there is nothing above it. What is the lowest possible value for this one? And actually, I think I made a mistake in here because it's not 0. It's actually -1. So the lowest possible value here, as you can see, is -1. But remember, this -1 is not the same thing as this -1. They're different because this -1 comes from the location or position of this point right here. -1 right here. -1. And the highest possible value here goes all the way up to 3. So we just described the domain and the range of these 2 functions.